Alright, this is my tutorial video that I'm putting together for scroll work and or filigree, whatever you want to call it. Um, this is mainly geared towards people using it for tattooing or drawing it or painting it or what have you, but with that particular style being towards like tattooing. Um, There's a lot of videos out there uh, to watch. Jeff Gogway has a nice one, and some others. I've watched a ton of them, and I've kind of tried to put together little pieces that I've picked up from each one of them to put it all together in a package. Because I tried drawing scroll work and filigree for a while, and I always kind of seemed like it was missing something, or I wasn't just understanding the concept. So I went back and looked at it again to kind of see what I was missing and try to fill in those gaps. Um, I think a big thing to keep in mind is that scroll work is pretty old. You know, you got Romans and the Greeks doing it, and before even that, you know, a few thousand years ago, you had the Egyptians doing it. It has a style, and if you understand where it comes from, it's a lot easier to interpret that style more accurately. You want to start with looking at the way that it's done, the way that it's been mastered, and take those things apart and kind of see. At least that's how I do it. I try to break things down piece by piece, and then all the elements kind of put together as one will get you that look that you're kind of going for. As an example, a lot of this is done in woodworking or carving. So here are some beautiful examples of some wood carvings that people have done. Um, I find this amazing because these guys just draw it on there and then in three-dimensional space carve these things out, which takes it to a whole nother level than just trying to draw it, or tattoo it. So I respect this a lot. I use a lot of this for reference um, because it's very traditional. Um, what's going on here a lot of the time is a lot of scroll work is I break it down to two different elements. You got like your scroll kind of spiral shapes, and then they're usually complemented with like the acanthus leaf. And the acanthus leaf is a lot of what you're seeing right in here. Let me get this drawn on here so you can see it. It has to be on top. So yeah, you're getting a lot of this. The acanthus leaf, anyway, is this area. Wow, I'm sorry, guys. So yeah, it's this area right in here. What's happening with these leaves kind of coming around and making these folds, spiraling back. So anyway, you got your scroll work, which is more of this kind of spiral-esque stuff, and then they kind of use these leaves to kind of decorate the the hooks and stuff coming off of these spirals. But what's really happening also here is if you're looking at it, even these spiral-esque scrollwork pieces, these are really just representations of the same leaf, but it's been stylized in this kind of three-dimensional twisting pattern, which kind of the elements get exaggerated in it, and it kind of I make them two different things, even though they're basically the same exact thing. They're just done two different ways. Anyway, so that's a little bit of the history with wood carving. The reason I'm getting into it is when I get into the shapes that you're going to be using, the basic forms that make these things up, it's going to be important because that's where they come from. Um, so, moving ahead, a lot of what you're going to be doing are just really basic shapes. There's like a short library of them, and if you put them all together, you're going to start to see what you want to see. A lot of the trouble I had was I knew the look, but I wasn't really paying attention to the pieces and like I said, pulling it apart and looking at what's going on. Um, so, when you where I'm going with this is I took a lot of instructional videos that were actually for wood carvers and not for drawing really necessarily, but more like, you know, guys that do woodworking and stuff. And so anyway, let me get right into it. Um, your basic elements that you're going to use a lot is, you know, you're going to have your spiral. Make that a little darker. New layer here. Draw things light, and then I kind of get into them as I build them up. So you got your spiral. My hand might be a little bit crappy. It'll get warmed up. So you got your spiral. The reason this is important is this area going right along here. This is called your backbone. And the reason why this line in particular right here is important is this creates like a contained area that your shapes and everything are gonna all stem off of. Everything is supported by this backbone. It's a primary shape to have in here. Now, what's also important is you have what's called your point of origin, and that's going to be like where your spiral is starting from. And now in this case, you could take this and extend it out or whatever. And now right here, this will be your point of origin. And everything is going to be moving through the spiral back toward this point right here. This is important, as you'll kind of see. So next shape, a basic element shape, is a curve. Now a curve is going to be, you know, any kind of thing that kind of just scoops up and kind of comes and hooks back around. There are a lot of different ways to do this, but in this kind of style, it's good to do this kind of curve like I did here. And what makes it different is than another curve is like maybe a curve is just that, but something that goes along in this style. And that's a horrible curve, but something a little cleaner. But like kind of more like that. And what separates these two things is right in this area. You have what I call a hook, or what is called a hook, and it's just right in this little area. Now, what's happening as I zoom in here is the line will come up, but instead of continuing to bend over, the line comes up and then abruptly kind of at the end it just kind of hooks back around and then comes back. This is important because it kind of gives like that tapered look. It just looks kind of boring if the thing just kind of goes over and then just kind of comes off. Like you can do that. It's fine. You know, there are no rules. There's just kind of traditions that are done, and if you pay attention to those, you kind of have an idea of what you want, what kind of look you want to get, and try it up, change things up. I'm just trying to give like pointers that I use that were helpful to me. Okay, so you got your spiral with your backbone here. You got your point of origin, which is where everything kind of starts and goes. And then you got your curve, which is, you know, remember the little hook, or try different styles, but here I'm suggesting to use the hook because that's what I do. Another one that's important is an arch. And an arch is pretty simple. It's just like a, you know, you're just round. It's like a half circle kind of shape. That's used at the end. Primarily, it's used at the end of, you know, your curve. So, you know, you have a curve that kind of comes up. It's got the little hook right there. And then you use your arch to kind of pull it back around. Now, when I first start kind of drawing these out, I'll just follow these through in like that nice kind of curvature. Now, if you're a tattooer, what you're noticing here is that kind of might remind you of like a finger wave, like a Japanese style finger wave. And that's what really unlocked a lot of getting the signature look for me was another tattooer who made a video. And I was watching him do it, and it just when he was doing these quick, you know, down strokes back through the curve to the point of origin along the backbone, it reminded me of finger waves, and then all of a sudden I got it, like it clicked. So I wanted to point that out. So what we did here is we've taken our curve and our arch, and we mixed them together, and what we get is, you know, this guy right here. And they can vary up in different thicknesses and whatnot. And you can, just like a finger wave, you can kind of add right here. You got a piece that kind of comes off the back and sweeps along. And then another element is what woodcutters would call an S cut, or another kind of a curve. And this is just, real simple. You got your S shape. It's a flat S. But that's really as simple as it gets. It can get a little bit more curvy. It can be a little bit more flatter. Doesn't really matter. But primarily, this is what you're going to see. You're gonna see a spiral with a backbone. You're going to see a mixture of curves. You're going to have arches mixed in with the curves to kind of give like a rounded edge to them. And then what helps kind of break up the monotony is this S cut. And the S cut is important for doing like the acanthus leaf shapes, like the leaf rolling around into and off of other parts of the scroll work. So yeah, I'm going to take all these things and kind of shrink them down and stick them over here for now. And I'm going to start, I guess, next with a spiral. Spiral is really crucial when you're drawing scroll work. It's going to take some practice. All of these things, if you're new to them, are going to take some practice. There are no shortcuts. The only shortcut is to put in the work and to put in the time. It's just true. So put in the time, kind of practice it. Because I'm doing this on the iPad, I will kind of quote unquote cheat a little bit, and I'll spin the thing around so certain angles work better for me. That's why I'm using this thing. Why are we doing these things if they don't make our lives a little easier? So some of this in the beginning might be a little sloppy, just because I'm working at angles that are weird, but takes practice to get it right. So kind of breaking down how to draw a spiral. Spiral is really important because if you don't have the right kind of proportions, it just isn't going to look right. You'll see that a lot when you're practicing and learning like script, like the ovals and the loops and all the things and the tilt of the letters. It's all important for getting that signature look. And if you don't do it right, it just doesn't look right. Okay, so in dealing with the spiral, I'm going to start down in this area in here. So look at this grid that I have laid out, and I'm going to take this square and just kind of square that out. When I start spirals a lot, just to keep them loose, I'll start with just like a circle. So I'll, instead of trying to get the spiral ratio perfect, I just kind of come in and give it a little circle. Now, to try to keep these things kind of in scale, we'll look at this measurement right here. We got, this spiral's apex, whatever, is 1 square. As you're coming out of the spiral, let's assume the spiral is going like this way. You want to, when you start your spiral, which I'll do in here, I'll just kind of like work this out a little bit. Try to keep your edges, try to keep your hand in that fluid motion, kind of moving around. So at the center of the spiral in this area right in here, you want to make sure that you're already working, when you're directly above it, when you start working around this spiral in this shape, you want to make sure that the next point where it comes back around, like it's going around backwards in a clock or whatever, when it comes back around, that this section up here is like twice the distance away. So, here we're at the center, we got a half, so we got that same half coming around, and just start moving it out. Now, as it's moving out, we're going to go a whole nother square out over this way, and then round it off. So, to make this easier for myself, this is just how I draw easier. So, try to keep it loose. I come around, I'm just like flipping around this way. Keep it loose. This is where it takes practice. You kind of got to just get your hand into the motion. Now, when you're drawing this, draw from the wrist. Don't try to do this with your fingers twisting around. Like, lock your hand and just let your forearm carry your wrist around. It's all about a long stroke. So we're going to pull this around. Again, see, I'll spin this around so you guys aren't getting dizzy. So this distance up into here, this kind of, you mimic that when you're coming back around. You want to just increasingly getting larger until over here we're at a full square again. And now if you look up here, going this way, we're going to now have 1, 2 squares as a scale of measurement for this circle that I drew in that square. So we're moving from the center out and just getting wider and wider and wider. So this one's going to come down. You know, I do a lot of really like working out the shapes first, and then I'll like take that layer and bring it down. It just takes practice, guys. I haven't done this for a few days. I don't know why I decided to try to do this video now, because I haven't practiced scroll work in a few days. So you can see my spiral has widened from where it was. Take some of this out so it's not so confusing. So the spiral has kind of widened from where I had it before, but you know, it's getting wider as it comes out. Going back to the marker here. So now we're coming around and we're going to get even wider, twice as wide as the original size here that I started with this kind of spiral. So it's coming out and then it's coming back around, and you just keep getting wider and wider with it. And just kind of rounding it out. Now I can kind of come back around. Now it just takes a lot of practice, but your spirals will get cleaner. But it's a really important element here. Okay, so now that we have the spiral that's kind of starting off, there's a lot of ways to do this. When it comes back around, you can make it, you know, big and knotty, or you can keep it small. It really depends on what kind of look you want it to have. But try different things. A lot of times I'll have 2 spirals that are interacting, so I'll have like a, you know, I'll have like a circle that I'll do here, and then another one that'll be down here, and then they'll kind of work towards each other. So this one kind of does its thing and goes that way, and it's got a big one, you know, that comes around this way, and it'll just give you like your general spiral patterns and like your backbones, stuff like that. Okay, so getting back to this. So now that I have like kind of like a spiral built out, start messing with it. Let me flip it around this way. So it's coming around like that. You know, we got our thing going back this way. So let's take that piece right here and get it to a little bit more manageable size so I can kind of mess with it. Alright, so we've kind of come around this way. So another important element to this is like an S-curve, where the spirals are kind of doing their thing together. I'll do another one, so you know this shape will kind of be like this, and there's like a big circle that's just a bigger spiral that's coming out, and then maybe we'll have you know, like a smaller one that's coming over here, and so the S curve that connects these two is moving this way, and it comes back and around and up, and again just work on your spiral, kind of getting it, get the hand motion down. I just kind of always scoop around, it's a little flat there, but you know, oh well, my hand's got to warm up. Getting rusty on this one, so you're coming around, general shape kind of coming back up that way. Now this is like an S pattern, I guess you would call it. It's very similar to what I drew here. Another way to go about this is like a C shape. So you got the letter S, which is represented here, and then a C. A C is kind of, these two things are kind of curling in on each other, and it's something you can build off of. So let's say with the C, I'll do a circle, you know, in here, and then I'll have another really close circle that may be a little smaller. They can be the same size. You can make them the same size. That's a little bigger, but you know, or you can intentionally make the second one smaller so that it kind of pulls in. And what this is doing is, instead of doing like an S curve that might be going that way, you're letting this kind of spiral out from this area, and then you're coming around, and instead of hooking the other way, you bring it around the outside. So now we're kind of looking at a C shape that comes back around in this way. So now you got, your S shape here, or illustrated here, and then you also have another way of kind of using that same technique of two circles meeting is the C shape, which is right here. All right, so moving along, we'll take this, kind of get that out of our way at the moment. So there's an S shape and a C shape, as they can be used respectfully. Where this comes into play now with our other elements is using the curve. There's a finger wave kind of thing. Now, the point of origin is important because everything will go back to that. So for now, we'll come back to this S curve shape. In the meantime, I'm just going to move it out of the way. Okay, so the point of origin and why that's important for kind of getting this down. So our point of origin will be here, right? And our spiral will kind of just do one of these deals where it's kind of coming around back to that point. Be afraid to let your hand kind of just get loose and crazy around, working around spirals. You can't do it tight. I really discourage people from trying to do like this method where like they're just kind of trying to feel it out. Like just try to let the thing flow. Spirals just kind of have to flow off of your hand quickly for them to kind of have that look. I mean, if you get it the other way, that's great. But yeah, my video. So where the hooks come in is, so you're looking at them and they all kind of want to head into this curve and they want to move in with this curve of the spiral. So I just kind of treat it like finger waves. You can either start here if you want to, where the spiral is like coming in, or you can start them from the point of origin down here. It really doesn't matter. You can do it any way you want to. So I'll try to do it both ways. So, I'll come in and just kind of work it in, give it a little hook back into that area. I'll take another one, hook it in. Now what you're doing here is you're always traveling back to the point of origin. Everything is just being sucked back into that section. It's really important to kind of get that look. And as you move these around, the curves will get a little bit more exaggerated, but you're always wanting to kind of come around and bring it back into this section. Everything is coming from here and moving back in that way. If it's easier for you, you can draw it out this way too. If you want to come into it instead of back from the spiral, you can kind of come out this way and then hook it back in that way. I primarily go from the hook of the curve and then work back towards the point of origin. That's just what I do. But sometimes when I'm adding more to them, I'll go the other direction. I'll show you just in a minute what I mean. And then here, a lot of different ways to handle this, what's called a turnover. This is similar in like chrysanthemums. The petal is coming around. It's doing one of these, and then like it's curving back over that way, and this section underneath here is all supposed to be like the underside of it. There's a lot of ways you can do it. You can just make it big, you can make it small, you can make it a lot of pieces coming into one. I want to keep these videos relatively short, so I won't go into all the details with them. Maybe in other videos I'll do it. This is bad. This is normally where I would turn the iPad the other direction because my angles suck like that. Alright, so anyway, that gives you an idea of that. So these are baselines here. They're structures. They're rough. What they are is like going to be three-dimensional shapes, or at least two-dimensional. So you're coming up, follow your hook to right in here. Now I find that your spiral here and these hooks and how they interact, it's really nice if everything kind of touches. It doesn't have to, but I like the way that it looks. So we got our piece coming up, we got our hook, we use that arch to kind of push it out, and we get nice and wide with it when you're coming out. The more you kind of come up like this, and you don't want to be like a little thing. You don't. I mean, you can if you want to. It gets real finger wavy then. But I find it's good to come in, get that hook, and then get really wide really fast, and then start hooking it back in. It gives it that more kind of tapered look. Of course I didn't do it here. But, so you come up, give it a nice like wide brow, or whatever you want to call it, and then pull that back around. Don't go all the way unless you want to like get a feel for it or get it everything really in depth. But everything's coming back towards this point of origin. It's all coming right back here. We got another piece. We'll just kind of peel off of that. Again, with these, it's good to get wide first and then thin it out. It's got that finger wave look where it always follows that point of origin and comes back. This guy's coming up. We're gonna make this one like a little baby kind of arch with like a hook coming around, and then we're gonna let it get like really big. So we're gonna get big with this one, come around this way. So here's where I would come, instead of trying to force this bad angle that I'm doing here, I'll come back around this way and let it get nice and wide and feel it out, kind of going that way. Sometimes it's just easier to come at it from the other direction to get the look that you kind of want to get. And with these, you can kind of slice them in like smaller pieces if you want to. We can get into that more later. Not my best example, but it's an example. And then here we're just going to do the same. I'm going to round this out so I can get to these angles better. Got a guy coming around. Again, dramatically hooking back towards the point of origin. Everything is coming back this way. So yeah, there you go. There's with that. I know how to work it out in here. I could do another one. It's kind of popping up and in and around, back to the point of origin. Something that's good to point out is that I'll use a different color so it's easier to see what I'm talking about. So this guy is coming in and coming down that way, right? And the next one's following that same suit, same angle. But each time that you're moving along, up and down or through your piece, if you're working in this direction where you're starting here and you're coming out and working through it this way, everything that's coming back here is always going to stay behind what came before it. So this comes first, and then this kind of stays behind it. You can see this line's here, but this one's coming behind it. This line's here, but this guy's coming in behind him. So this piece here starts to kind of fan out as you go. As long as each piece is moving back this way, it just keeps getting wider and wider until that point of origin, that arch, just keeps getting more extreme. And that's what you want. You want to have that look where everything's folding into that space. And if this backbone keeps getting wider, that's fine, because all it's doing is like making this more and more circle-like, which is going to give you the kind of look that you might want or might want to avoid. I don't know, but that's the way I do it. So yeah, those keep coming back. Switch back to the other color. Here we go. So like I said, each one here as we're working, it's coming behind the previous piece, and this just starts getting wider and wider and wider as you keep moving, unless it gets thinner and thinner, which is a nice look too. This guy will come around, we'll give a nice hook. I just kind of feel this out. Again, it's coming back and around and behind. The lines are always a little bit longer. And then this piece, we're going to give it that kind of, a lot of these, this is the end of the leaf, like the bulbous part of the end of the leaf kind of folding around. So here we can use like the, what's important here, the S-cut. The S-cut kind of brings all of the leaves to an end in a certain way. So in here we could do an S-cut that kind of works like this. Sorry, it's getting a little saturated. But the S-cut's moving down and around. So it comes down and around. And then just give this the old deal here. Now this is your backbone, this area back here. And as you can see, I just keep stretching that curvature so that it works around this. It keeps getting closer and closer, but it's taking longer and longer to get closer to that line before it kind of stretches all the way out. So there you go. You kind of got like your spiral arch kind of thing going there in your scroll work. Pardon me. Now where the S cut here that I was showing earlier, where that becomes important is sometimes you feel awkward just kind of ending back here, and you want to know, like, what do I add here? What can I add to this part as it's curving in? You can take these S cuts and stretch them out if you want, and just do like big leaves kind of coming up. You got your S curve, and then you're just kind of using a single curve to hook it back. Again, a lot of what is being copied here, a lot of what you're representing when you're drawing this stuff are leaves. So, you know, if you're a tattooer, you draw leaves all the time. You got your, you know, whatever you're doing, your shapes, just you're using that S curve. Just keep using it. They just want to come off, and then again, when you're getting to this point here where you finished out your S curve, you want this to come back and flow right into that, the line that is the backbone right here. Let it flow into that. I'm going to zoom in kind of close, but if you can kind of do it like this, you know, but where that angle meets right there, it's okay. But the more extreme you make it to kind of come back in and hook right into this line and come back out that way. Now I'm turning it weird, but my hand draws in a weird angle. So you want it to come back and hit that same plane, that same backbone that's coming along the back. You could have another piece. This is kind of behind it, but it'll be coming out. Get that S curve, and then arch it around, make it nice and smooth, or taper it off if you want to, or kind of like curve it. You could do another S curve right there where it's coming around this way, and then S curve it back. Pretend, always draw through your things, you know, follow it to where it's going to go, not just stop right here and just don't do anything because it might not look right. Yeah, and just continue to play with those. Another good spot to put those is on the top of your backbone here in your big spiral. I'm going to turn it weird, but because that's how I draw. This way, and just have them arch right off of there, come back around. Another one maybe coming off this way, getting kind of crazy with it. But those will come out, give them the old hook, pull them back in with your arch. You got your S hook, bring it back into your spine or your backbone. And again with this piece, just kind of comes out, does its thing, and then arches back in. Always following that spine. Everything, all roads lead back to the same place. And that's really going to give your filigree, like scroll work, filigree, that signature look where it looks right. Okay, that's great. But now what? Now that we have, you know, everything coming back to, you know, this point of origin we have right here, what do? This comes back to what I was illustrating earlier with these guys right here with the S shape, or with the C curve. You can now use that to extend what you're doing so far. So first I'm going to get rid of this guy. Turn this back up. I'm going to get rid of this guy. We don't really need this in here now. So we're going to select this area. So what's so great about using the iPad, guys, you can't do this when you're drawing it on a piece of paper. So I'm going to take this and shrink it down a little bit so we can expand on what we were doing. So we'll use this as an example, this S curve that we got going on right here. I'm going to add another layer just in case I want to remove this and show another option. So we have an S curve we can work into this now. Now I'll use a different color just to show structure. But right now we have this S curve that's kind of doing this. Coming around this way, right? So I would take another circle, which the circle is the basis for this spiral right in here. And I'm going to do another one. Let's put it somewhere fun. Go right about there, okay? I'm going to take these guys away so that I can draw on this. Alright, so we'll go back to my red marker, get it down to size. So we'll add that circle right about in here. This is going to represent my other spiral. You could try doing it either way. You can mimic the same spiral shape that's coming through this other one. So you can try coming in here, spiraling out, and you're meeting up with that same, what was your previously your point of origin is now like a transition point in the S curve between these two guys. That is a terrible example, but what we should probably do is we'll come from the backbone here, kind of come out this way, and I'm just going to feel it out. You know, it's a little bigger than what I had drawn, but I like to go on the feel. It's getting weird to see what I'm doing here, convoluted. So there we go. Let's take this away so it's not like, what the hell is he doing? So we got something kind of like that. You can go that way. I think I probably would have went the other way. No, I did it this way here, so that's fine. It's just a bad spiral. So I'm going to erase some of this, take this down a bit so I can get rid of it, but it's not totally gone. I like to do this a lot when I'm doing preliminary work. It's good to see where you kind of went wrong so that you don't do it again. I'm also doing this laying down, which is probably bad posture. Not getting a lot of motion out of my forearm. I always try to make it more and more like a circle. That spiral will be nice and round when it comes out and it's finally done. Alright, so we have something like that. We go about it, you know, the same formula we did last time. I kind of work my way through it. I'll do my little hooks. I'll come in this way. Give me my just structures of what's going to move through there. Alright, we'll just kind of build off of that. This guy, I'll make this one big piece that's coming through here. This, going back to the technical terms, this part here where it's a turnover, as you can see, it's coming back around, it's turning over. This is colored in here. When it spirals in like that again, that's called a volute. You might hear woodworking guys kind of use the more technical terms, but that would be called either a turnover, or if it's more just like an encased spiral, where the center is more of a circle and less of like that turnover hook thing, that's called a volute. So we got that coming around this way. We'll put this guy in, hook him down and over, back and around like we were. So we got to come in and meet that one. Bring it in a little again. Make sure they're like touching in there. It's nice when they touch. They don't have to, but it's my stilo. This is too close right in here, so we'll back it up, you know, back it away, so we'll give enough time for that hook to develop. Bring it out, get nice and wide up at the top. Bring it back around. Okay, so now we got that piece kind of coming around this way. You can see when you just start to get, when you get those shapes, so those hooks, you know, if you're tattooing, like I said, you're familiar with finger waves and stuff, it really changed this whole thing for me, because I wasn't getting this kind of effect. I was, but it just looked like shitty and kind of generic, and for some reason, doing it this way helped me out a lot. Now where these things kind of meet, you can see things kind of get thin, and then they kind of come back out. That's fine structurally, as long as you keep the curve looking nice. You know, you don't have any flat spots in it. You could probably get away with this. It just depends on how you want it to look. again, it's just imagining things. A lot of times in the scroll work, the acanthus leaves will kind of pop out, and then the next piece, kind of what I call fluting, it kind of like it's like a trumpet bell shape, and then the rest just kind of comes out of it. So we'll use those S curves here to kind of illustrate this. I'm not very good at this, but I will give it a try. It kind of comes out, and we got the S curve. Does its thing. I'm still learning these, so be patient with me if it doesn't look great. And then you counter it with another S curve. That's not really great at all. We'll go with the tried and true kind of leaf method. So we'll come out, we'll give it a little go off the front, and then widen it and come back this way towards, this spine. And then you can have another piece that's coming off and hooking back this way and kind of comes in there. You do the same thing down here using a hook that's coming the other direction. Just hook it this way. You can have a piece coming back over like that. It's really, all you're doing is you're just really repeating these same kind of motifs like over and over again to kind of get that look you want. I'm not really digging how this is not really helping me here. This previous S curve that I drew. Now I'm going to take that down and out. Kind of give it another go. It was good for that in that particular time, but it's just kind of fighting the flow and the direction that I want things to go in now. So here you can do a lot of stuff. Back to finger waves, another thing that's similar to it in structure are like a chrysanthemum flower. When you're drawing a chrysanthemum, a lot of it is that whole, the arc comes over, the arc comes back, and then you kind of come in, and then whatever, this is your shadow, and this is your leaf bending around, or your petal bending around. It's the same principle here. I just want to stick with the arch. So you come in, you can go over the line. I'm going to take this back edge on this layer. Take this and I'm going to move it down. Sorry, being awkward here. Move this down. I'm going to merge that with the bottom layer so these two are all locked onto one layer. Yeah, then I'm going to come in and erase this spine a little bit, this backbone, so that I have a little, so everything's not kind of getting in the way here. Like I said, I like to keep the opacity, somewhere in the 80 range. That way it goes away, but it's not like gone, and it also, I can kind of see through it. So with here, you can kind of come up, and you can get your arc in there, like you're doing a chrysanthemum petal. Get your arc to come in. You can make it longer or wider, whatever you want to do. And then hook it up. Bring it back around. Again, keep it on the outside and just let it keep scooping in until it hits like that disappearing point. I'll give you that nice look. Everything just kind of comes right back down in there. You could take another one that's either behind it or over top of it. So this one's kind of coming in here. Let's make this a little bigger so it kind of has a nice look to it. And then this line actually that's here for this line right above there, that previous line acts pretty much the same exact line. It's going to come down and do that, and then this kind of gets shaded, to give it like that look like it's curving up, in, and out, and over. And you can do the same thing here. You can take a S curve and kind of add it to that. Maybe another S curve here. Or maybe not. Maybe you want to do it a different way. Another thing to do is with your basic line structure, you can kind of come in and build off of this and give it another spiral here. Let's put a circle here. Oof. Sorry guys, these are rough. And then we do another spiral here. This is the thing. When I've been practicing these things and drawing them, you can just go on forever. I mean, it just doesn't really have to end anywhere. It's really hard sometimes for me to get myself to figure out where to stop, because I'll just do them like a whole page of them. Just keep going and going and going. More circular. Gotta be rounder. Try to get it nice and round. I'm in a bad posture right now. My hand shape isn't that great. But yeah, you can just keep going with this. You know, you could build your hooks in here. Again, just wherever you want to put them, all over the place. Build them out. You can hook them around even more if you want, and try to get some more depth in there. Like this one's coming around like this guy here and hooking around and over. Not so great, but whatever. So we get in here, more of these. Flail that one out. Throw a little hook. This guy here. Round around the last one. That a nice wide deal there. Looks bad. This curve needs more work. And again, you know, what do you do off of here? You just pop a piece off of there. Come around with it. The arch. Maybe another little one sneaking in back there. Whatever. You can just keep going on forever with this if you want to. And this spiral can come off of there. Okay, so that's a good start on how to deal with all the spiraling acanthus leaf. Next, I want to kind of focus on the acanthus leaf itself and putting that in, because a lot of this is just sticking to these 4 different principles and shapes that I've shown you. You got your backbone, your spiral, your curves that are acting kind of like your finger wave hooks. Again, don't forget that hook at the end, put on there. You got your arch, and your arch comes in to reinforce the back end of your curve and your hooks. And then your S-cut here. Your S-cut helps to kind of like break up the monotony of everything else going on. I mean, it's nice to keep doing all these curves, and you could build a style where that's all you do, and it still looks really good. But the S-cut is important to get into next when we're dealing with the acanthus leaf. So, in dealing with the acanthus leaf, we're going to back out of here and go to some other examples that I have drawn up so far. Here's an example of not really the acanthus leaf, but this is, you know, just me scribbling around. But where you flesh all this out and get it worked out, it's a really nice looking piece. This is miles beyond what I was doing even just a few weeks ago. I was getting okay with this, but some of these tricks and how they lock together really worked well for me, and I just wanted to make this video to kind of help other people along with that. Good reference too, just a quick, before we get to the acanthus leaf, a really great reference is it's right in your pocket. I mean, if you live in the U.S., sometimes in European money too, but the American money is gorgeous. If the work and the engraving that's done on these things is fantastic. You know, all you need is a dollar bill. I mean, look at this stuff, guys. You got these beautiful lines and curves and acanthus leaves folding around, and it's just great. There's just reference all over the place. The 5 has got these kind of more tighter, or more open rather, wider leaf styles that are going on here. You know, you got this piece right here, and it's really, again, you know, you're just building off of what we already talked about. You got your spiral coming through here. You got your backbone. It comes up. It's just spiraling again. These are just like these hooks that are coming around. Now this style of what's happening in here is, I'm personally trying to learn more of it. This stuff right in here, the more like acanthus leaf flowing over. What I've been learning so far is a little formulaic. It's more kind of like this stuff here, you know, that kind of comes back and in and out. And but there are a lot of different ways to do this. It's been developed over thousands of years, so there are methods, there are traditions to follow, but then you gotta, you know, you want to put your spin on it, you got to bend those rules a little bit and see what works for you. This is an example real quick from the Russ Abbott book. I want to give a shout out to Russ. I got his Ornamental Archive. It's a great book. It's no longer, I'm ordering pizza. It's no longer available in a hardcover, but you can get it on Tattoo Smart. This is the PDF file of it now. If you want to go to that, see if I can find a tab here. Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. You go to tattoosmart.com, and this is the home page. They're offering this new Launchpad thing here, this training they're doing. If you haven't heard of Tattoo Smart, here you go. This is a fantastic website put together with Russ Abbott and company to put together brush sets and all kinds of stuff for you on the iPad Pro, and Clip Studio. If people are using like different programs and stuff, you can specifically go to the iPad Pro collection right there. Click on that. I would go, then you go to the books. You can go in through the different books that they have here. These are all downloaded onto, I'm not sure how this really kind of works yet. I'm still figuring it out. I started saving it. When you get the book, which is down here on the lower right, if you can see that, what I did that made it a lot easier, because it seemed to make you have to keep opening up your account and opening it as a separate thing. So what I was doing here was when I went to this, you click up here in the upper left-hand corner, next to the address, this thing that looks like a book, and you would click on that, and this would normally be your bookmarks or your history, but you go to reading list. I don't forget how I did this, but there's a way to mess with this where you can add it to your reading list. I guess you can just add here. But that's what I did, and now I can look at it even when I'm offline. This book is fantastic. I'm just going to flip through it really quick. Credit where credit's due. He put together a fantastic book. This is what I wanted to show you on my other thing. These are different stages from left to right of how keeping it loose, just getting those motions, scratching all over the place, moving around just to get everything in the right shape. As you can see in stage 1, stage 2, you're just keeping it loose still. 3, you're kind of roughing in your stuff. And 4, you got your final outlines. A lot of this comes from this stuff. It's all wood carved, over the last few centuries. Again, references to the dollar bill, all kinds of art and sculpture and ways to just make things real pretty, frames, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into that. That's Russ's book. I'm just trying to do my own thing here. I just wanted to give a shout out to that. Yeah, good job, Russ. Great book. So, moving ahead. The acanthus leaf. I'm going to pop to this example real quick. This is just a really easy way to kind of draw it straight on. Where I start with this, I'm going to copy one of these guys. Which one should I take? I'm going to merge these two together, and then I'm going to copy this one because for whatever reason I like the look of that one better. So we're going to come over here to another sheet where I have some graph paper that'll kind of help get this mapped out. Plus it makes it easier to draw it symmetrically because we can cheat because we have iPads. Yay! So here we go. I'm going to throw that, right about there. These look like a pain in the ass to kind of draw. I mean, at least they were for me. I don't know why, because I draw flowers and leaves and I tattoo them pretty much half of my time. So I don't know why these were challenging to me, but I kind of wanted to show an example of how I figured out how to do them to make it simpler for me, or a simple way to think about it is you got do a new layer here. And, sorry, I'm going to move this guy back to a center line so it kind of makes sense. Just head right up the center. I kind of think of these as like a fractal thing, and what fractal means is that no matter how far you zoom in or zoom out of a particular repeating pattern or design, it just continues to repeat itself in its structure to infinity. A spiral is a fantastic example. If you just continue to draw a perfect spiral forever and zoom down through it, it would just keep repeating. Kind of like, anyway, I was going to say something about broccoli, but I'm going off the deep end. So here, we're just going to draw a line straight up through the center. This will be our center vein. In the acanthus leaf, let me go over the structure first real quick. There's the center vein, which must be part of the design, usually. It just makes it look better if you got the veins in there kind of coming through. In this case, we're just going to draw one straight on. So I just kind of approach it like I would a leaf. I'm going to come down at the bottom here. I'll mark it a little bigger. I'm going to come in down at the bottom and just get wide with it really quick, and then just kind of let it taper in and kind of do that. Real sharp. So we kind of keep this nice and round. Nice sine curve, kind of, even open curve there. Now, in the spirit of cheating, I'm going to copy that and then just flip it around really quick here, slide it over, so we get a nice perfect one on the other side. Combine those two, bring it down. Okay, so now that we have this overall shape, this is the overall shape of the acanthus leaf from this view. It's like a spade, like a big fat kind of spade shape. Now, I've done this a bunch of times, and I've found that you kind of want to follow a rule of thirds, which means this is where it also becomes like part of the fractal situation, is you want to divide it into three sections. So let's say, I don't know, we'll make this 1/3, and that's 2/3. So now we have this separated into 1, 2, 3. So now it's been divided down into 3 leaves that will come off of this whole kind of leaf shape. So a good way to start is just to kind of come in wherever you're comfortable. Now, just like before, everything wants to follow a nice arc and then come back in towards that central vein. Now, before we called it the backbone, and here it's going to be the vein. So I'm going to take this one, do the same thing, kind of keep it on the same kind of arc, and then bring it down. I might want to stretch this top one out a little bit. So I'm going to do the El Cheaterino and kind of do that. I'm going to take this section, selection tool, and I'm just going to stretch it out and then move it down. There we go. So there we got our center vein coming through in that section. Now, you're going to come through, and I'm going to turn it upside down just because that's the way I draw these better. I'm going to lighten this down. I'm going to use a big brush for my eraser, but really low on this. So I'm going to just tone it down all around. Just tone down the whole thing so I can continue to draw without it getting cloudier and cloudier. So like a leaf, I'm just going to come in. It's a little too big. Come in and cut right there. Ugh. Sorry guys, I know I might make this a pain in the ass. This one will come up, meet that same point that I had there. And then this one's going to come in. And this guy's going to come out that way, and he's going to cut back in here. Coming up, cutting back in, coming up, and then this is the center vein coming down for that. So what you want to do with these guys is, here's a good example. If you look up in the top left one here and here, these are called eyes, I believe. Look at my thing here. Yeah, that's called the eye. And what that really is representing is that's where the leaf is coming back towards the center vein of the entire leaf itself and folding around. It's like a curl that there's dimensionality to it. There's depth in there. And then what comes off of that later, which are these 2 lines here that are splintering down. So you have a leaf that's coming down and around, and it's connected to another one, but it's coming behind it. So it's coming around this way. Right, and then this is the eye. You would shade that in normally just black, and keep it small and keep it a little wide. And then this is coming down behind the other leaf petal, and then coming out this way. So it's actually coming down this way, piping around, and then I'm dotting this because this is behind the other one. You wouldn't actually see this. It just ends up getting erased or just not outlined when you go and do it. So you kind of get like that overlapping shape in there. So where that applies to, I'm going to put it right here. That's where it's going to apply to, is that this piece is going to come down. And what I was getting at when I was circling these guys here is that you don't want to come down too close to the center vein, which is what I've been kind of doing. I want to kind of come down and then just give it that eye, little loop, and then pretend it's kind of coming out. It's going back there. And now your pipe is, you can have them touch if you want, but your pipe is going to come off of the edge of the eye and just really nice swoop back down into there. Now when you do these, you're going to shade around them because they're folding up and towards you. So the way to give them depth is you're gonna shade next to them to push them up, so that the shadows are dropping down under them. So you continue that pattern. I come up in here, kind of do one of these guys. This is be weird, so we're gonna come this way, get the pipe in there, or the eye rather. There's the eye. There's the pipe following back down, tapering towards the center vein. And then this goes tick, 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 behind there, and then comes back out over here. Now this gets even weirder because we'll take this. I'm going to duplicate it. Oh, that could get kind of goofy. Get this out of the way. What is it doing? Oh, wrong layer. Back to this layer. Get rid of it too. So I copied this. Now I'm going to move it. It's going to get weird here with that going that way, but we pull it back in this way. Some of these things are too close. They're too tight. I'm not doing it correctly. This, again, bear with me, guys. It's something I'm still kind of learning. So combine these two so I can further erase them and refine what I'm doing here. So we'll lighten this whole thing back up again. And now where it becomes fractal again is we're going to take the same rule of thirds that we applied to this whole big leaf, which we divided into thirds. Now we're going to do that to each one of these individual leaves that are coming, these individual leaves that are coming out of it, which as you can see here, I kind of take it in this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then a third one down here. Just give it a good practice. Come in, cut it, come in, cut it, come back up, come back out, cut it, come back in. It's kind of like your little pot leaf kind of fucking thing going on there. Cut it, bring it in. This comes back up. Oops, cut it, bring it in. I have to put some cuts in here. Let that come in. Let that do its thing. So that's what you kind of come up with. You don't have to do it this way. There's dozens of different ways that these leaves are done, even in this style. But that gives you an example of kind of how to do the acanthus leaf. So, in kind of try to show the acanthus leaf folded over and how it is shown in a different way, we're going to take these guys and kind of move them up out of the way. I'm going to paste this piece that I just did in. So this is really helpful with getting things tied together with the other elements that we previously went over. This is really simple in the way that it's formed. It looks great, but essentially what all that's really happening here is I start with my volute. Let me go with the red. The volute or the spiral, that's really just your point of origin. It's the only way to stop this thing from just going on forever is you got to bring it into a spiral. So we do that. Spiral that guy out, and we come down, out and around. And this is our center vein. It's going to kind of come up, do a little bit of this action. Now just kind of do the same with other things. Like here would be a C pattern. So we're bringing it right into that volute and coming out with a nice big C. That leaf could be really curling around. Give these things space to breathe. I do this a lot where I wouldn't do that. I would try to fit a lot in there, and it just doesn't come out looking very nice because it's just too crowded. Again, these are just the same shapes we've been working on. S curves, just flat curves with maybe like a little hook at the end. But these are all acting as the center veins for these folded over acanthus leaves. So with this, I just use the same fractal pattern. I start with how I draw leaves, and then I just continue to divide it up until it works. I'm going to switch angles a lot here, so here we go. So I'm going to come in this way. A good thing to point out is that when you're doing these, you kind of have to decide usually which end is the underside and which end is the top. Because I'll use this one right here as an example. When they come out, one side, in your leaf pattern, it kind of gets the S curve that comes out and then drops back in. kind of like a so. Right? The other side really doesn't want to do that same thing. You don't want to kind of come out and do that same kind of arc. You almost want to take it from the end and just flatten it and have it come around towards the center. My targeting is not too great today. Again, with this one, you come out. This is going to be the bottom section, so we'll bottom it out, bring it in. Again, you want things to be touching. You don't want to leave a lot of space in between things because it just leaves room for you to add more stuff until it feels filled in. And if it's open, that's okay. This is kind of like how I like to do it. With the top one, sometimes I'll just do both ends kind of flat, or maybe I should just get rid of these guys. Get out of my way. This one comes up really nice like that. Big old fatty. It comes down this way. There we go. And then in here, let that kind of spiral around. This is their center vein, so it kind of actually comes off of there. Again, always back down towards that tight spiral, that origin point. Coming up this way. Let's make this guy kind of the bottom, or the one direction that we'll take it. This one comes out and kind of comes back that way. This guy can come up and flip it around so I'm comfortable. I'm going to go this way, arc it out. Now what I'm not doing here, which is pretty important to bring up, I'm going to erase some stuff to kind of show my mistakes, and so you can help avoid them yourself. You really got to focus on everything coming back into the center vein or the backbone cleanly and evenly. What I should have focused more on is this, doing that, kind of coming in so that this can kind of come back out and breathe and get in there in that spot, so they're not like too. You don't want to have them overlapping. They're like just touching. Everyone's just squeezing into this area together. So yeah, we take that and then we'll lighten it up so that we can get some more fun in there. So now we've taken that, and you want to go about a little more than halfway up each of these petals before you cut in with your next one. So what I'll normally do is I'll kind of like draw a line where the second set of like petals are going to branch off of each of these, or not at all. But that kind of gives me an idea of like what's going to happen there. So this will come down, and then it's going to hit one of these. Now again, here's your eye can come in here. You get your eye, comes in, comes up and around, comes out of this piece. Give it a nice little curve, nice little other curve to meet it, comes down, and kind of gets in there. And this guy will come down around here. It'll do its little eye, which will then have a pipe kind of come up. These should go in front, actually, if I want, like I did over here. Everything's kind of coming in front. Yeah, we'll do that instead. It's a little easier when the side petals come up in front rather than go behind, like I had them there. Again, I've been studying so different ways of doing these that I haven't really even like decided how I like them to look. So we'll just do this and kind of do that. Same thing with this one. It's going to come up and in front there, and then its pipe's going to come down there. Make sure to point your pipe or your eye where your pipe's going to go, like towards, orienting it towards this center, because that's the way that they're going to follow down. If you have this like, if this comes down here, let's erase it. Let's say we did it, and we like did it this way, so it's like coming like that direction. That's just not going to like look right. It's going to be awkward. So it's a subtle thing, but taking it and kind of like seeing it through and kind of point it right down that way so that you can meet the arch, the spine down the center. Always have to have your center. So yeah, you do that. Still getting the hang of this, but you get the idea. A couple veins that'll come in through the pipes. We'll follow that center vein and come down. And come down, you know, that fun stuff. You know, and just keep repeating that as it moves through all these pieces. And eventually what you come down to is you start combining all these things together and you'll get something that kind of looks like this. Keep practicing at it. This is another page you saw in one of my other videos, quick video that I posted up. Yeah. If you guys have any questions or anything, just put them in the comment section. This is going to be a part 1. I'm going to do a part 2 just so I get a better handle on it. This is my first time making a video like this, so I'm trying to do my best to keep up with it and not say 5,000 times. But yeah, let me know what you think, and let me know if you want to see in part 2. If I'm doing a part 2, let me know what you would like to see in part 2 that you think I didn't go over. Part 2 is going to be a lot of just going into a little more finer details, different ways of doing like the same type of thing. And then also, if you can see this guy up here in my corner, I'm also going to go into like body anatomy and how to use that anatomy to get the curves and shapes that you want. So when you put these pieces on people, you know, they look right, they sit nice on the body. Ultimately, that's going to be something you're going to have to learn on your own, but I'm going to give you some tips and stuff to kind of help you think about it, maybe in a way that'll help you get better at it. Last hints, if you're not doing these things big, try to keep it a little simple. I know I get a little carried away with how many hooks and things that I put in there. If you're putting these as little frames around stuff or using it to help frame something else that you might be using in a tattoo, try to keep it simple at first. The more crazy you get with these, which is easy to do on an iPad because you can come in and you can zoom and you can get real tiny, and then this thing is the size of my screen, but when I'd actually end up tattooing it, it's maybe that big. So keep in mind the scale that you're working in. Be realistic about what you can do and what you can't do. And yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching my video. Like I said, let me know what you'd like to see in a part 2. I'm going to start putting it together after I get back. I'm going to Colorado for a week or so, and I'll be back. So thanks, guys. Take care.